The day sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the Artonis corporate tower, casting clean, sharp reflections on the polished floor, but Evelyn Mora had never felt more tangled in uncertainty. She was used to blending into the background, working quietly as a daytime data assistant who always arrived early, always followed rules, and always took the same elevator to the 24th floor. But that morning, something different pulsed in the air, something sharp enough to make her heart tense in her chest. She sensed it even before she stepped into the elevator. She sensed it in the hurried footsteps of security guards. She sensed it in the hushed whispers among employees. And she sensed it most sharply when the doors slid open and she found herself face to face with a man who looked like he stepped out of danger itself. If you believe in kindness, unexpected miracles and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Your support helps keep heartfelt stories alive. Evelyn immediately recognized the man. Everyone did. He was Cassian Vargo, the rumored head of a powerful organization people rarely dared to mention aloud. His presence alone felt like a sunlit storm, bright, intense, and impossible to ignore. Tall, sharply dressed in a steel-grey suit, he carried himself with a calmness that looked quiet on the surface but thunderous underneath. People whispered about him. Not all good, not all bad, but all unforgettable. Evelyn swallowed, stepped inside the elevator, and pressed herself against the far corner, hoping he wouldn't notice her trembling hands. She had heard rumors, ruthlessness, mystery, a mind sharper than knives. But seeing him so close made her realize something else entirely. He looked exhausted, as if life had weighed far heavier on him than stories ever described. His eyes, a striking cold blue, seemed focused yet strangely distant. He pressed the button for the top floor and stood silently. The air around him warm from the sun glowing through the glass-paneled elevator. The elevator hummed upward, smooth and steady until it wasn't. A sudden jolt shook the air, lights flickered and the cabin shuddered to a stop between floors. Daylight glimmered from the glass panel above, but the movement underneath their feet had died completely. Evelyn grabbed the railing to steady herself, her heartbeat thundering louder than the machinery. Her voice emerged shaky as she pressed the emergency button, but static replied. Cassian tilted his head upward slightly, his jaw tightening for a moment, but he didn't panic. He didn't even flinch. He simply exhaled slowly, like someone who had expected worse things in life. Evelyn mumbled an apology for no reason at all, mostly because silence next to a man like him felt too heavy to hold. She tried not to meet his eyes, but Cassian's gaze eventually found hers, and it softened unexpectedly. He asked if she was all right, his tone calm, almost gentle, far from the cold figure she always imagined him to be. His voice carried a warmth that surprised her, a warmth that didn't match the stories written around him. For the first few minutes, Evelyn tried desperately to appear composed. She straightened her blouse, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, and took shallow breaths. But anxiety grew in her chest, rising like water she couldn't stop. Being stuck in a small elevator was one thing. Being stuck in a small elevator with the most feared man in the city was another. Yet Cassian didn't make it worse. Strangely, he made it easier. He noticed her trembling, asked her questions, not intrusive ones, just enough to distract her. He told her to sit if she needed, handed her his water bottle when he noticed her dry lips, and shifted slightly so his presence felt less imposing. He even loosened his tie a little, as if trying to make himself less formal, less terrifying, less like someone who could command a room without speaking. As sunlight filtered through the emergency window, dust particles floated gently in the still air, creating a calm glow around them. Evelyn's heart settled bit by bit. Cassian studied her with curiosity, as though he couldn't understand how someone so soft-spoken and gentle could carry such a quiet strength in her eyes. He asked what she did for work. She expected indifference, but instead he listened intently as she described her small role in the company, how she analyzed customer files, helped organize departments, and spent her days tucked behind screens and spreadsheets. She admitted she didn't know if any of it mattered. Cassian surprised her by saying it did. He told her that people like her kept big worlds functioning, that unnoticed workers were often the backbone of everything others took for granted. His words struck her deeper than she expected. He didn't say them lightly, he said them like someone who truly understood what it felt like to build things from the shadows. He shared fragments of his own life, though carefully. He hadn't always lived in power. He hadn't grown up with a silver spoon. He knew what it felt like to claw through life with nothing but grit and hope. Evelyn watched his expression, noticing the weariness behind his strength. It was clear he'd had to make choices, difficult ones, with consequences he carried quietly. Minutes passed, then more. They were about 20 minutes into their unexpected pause when Evelyn realized something unusual. She felt safer than she should have. Cassian wasn't what people painted him to be. He was intense, yes, sharp, powerful, but beneath all that he was human, tired, layered, and unexpectedly kind in his own guarded way. She found herself telling him about her life, growing up in a small town, losing her mother young, spending her early years helping her grandmother run a tiny craft stall. She confessed her fear of being invisible, of her dreams always being small because no one ever encouraged her to dream big. The words slipped out before she could stop them, and embarrassment washed over her. But Cassian didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss her feelings. He looked at her with the sort of attention she'd never received before, the kind that made her feel seen, not judged. He told her dreams didn't need to be big to be meaningful, only genuine, and he told her that invisibility was a choice the world pushed on people, but some people shined quietly in ways louder souls never could. Evelyn felt her throat tighten with emotion. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Around the 30-minute mark the air grew warmer. Evelyn grew anxious again, but Cassian shifted closer, though still giving her respectful space. He told her to breathe with him, steady, slow, grounded. She followed without hesitation, focusing on his calm breathing. The moment felt strangely intimate, not romantic, but deeply human. Two people in a stuck elevator, both carrying silent burdens, both offering one another unplanned compassion. She watched him as he checked the emergency panel again, trying to assess the situation. His expression remained composed, but she saw something in him shift, a quiet protectiveness, as though her comfort mattered more than the inconvenience of being trapped. By the 40th minute, distant voices echoed from above. The elevator crew had finally reached them. Tools clanked, metal scraped, and the top panel opened with a burst of brighter daylight. Evelyn shielded her eyes instinctively. Cassian stood beside her, waiting to help her before himself. When the rescuers lowered a ladder and asked who wanted to go first, he motioned for her to step ahead. His hand hovered near her back, not touching but ready to catch her if her foot slipped. Once they were out, standing in the wide sunlit hallway, Evelyn felt air rush back into her lungs completely. She expected Cassian to walk away without a word, to disappear into the world of power where she didn't belong. But instead, he stepped beside her quietly. There was a softness in his eyes she hadn't seen earlier, something lighter, almost hopeful. He told her he wasn't someone who stumbled, paused, or found himself stuck by accident. He believed everything happened for a reason, including being trapped in an elevator with a woman who carried more courage than she realized. He didn't speak with charm. He didn't try to impress her. He simply told her the truth. Then, with the same calm presence he had shown the entire time, he asked if she would join him for dinner. Nothing formal, nothing grand, just a quiet meal somewhere sunlit and peaceful, a small break from the demands of the world. Evelyn stared at him, stunned. Her heart pounded with warmth, confusion, disbelief, and yet an undeniable sense of something right. She thought about the 40 minutes, the honesty, the gentleness beneath his fierce exterior, the unexpected connection. She realized she wanted to know him more, not because he was powerful, but because, for the first time in a long time, someone had seen her. And so, she said yes. not because she was caught in the moment, not because he was intimidating, but because somewhere in that sunlit elevator they both had found something they didn't expect, a glimpse of healing and maybe a possibility of something new. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Your support helps bring more emotional, hopeful stories to life. Special request before the ending, make sure to leave a heartfelt comment about the moment that moved you the most. Cassian and Evelyn walked down the hallway together, sunlight warming their shoulders as if blessing the unexpected connection that began in the quiet stillness of a trapped elevator. Proof that sometimes fate works in the daylight, in silence, in unexpected places where two souls meet before they even realize they were searching for one another.